I am Charlie Bingham. For those who may not know me, I am the founder of the HBCU IP and Tech Law Summit. We've been doing this for quite some time now. I think this is our seventh annual. I'm happy to be here. I'm thankful for our in-person attendee, eating the delicious breakfast. And we're thankful for all of you who are online joining us. Just a couple of technical issues. We want to make sure if you can't see the presentations, put it in the chat. If you're having a hard time hearing us, put it in the chat. We'll have someone who's monitoring that. But again, thank you for joining us. The key goal of this summit is to educate our attendees on the issues and opportunities in the IP and tech industries in an effort to diversify these industries and ensure fair, transparent, and accountable development of new technologies that empowers everyone. Given the climate, I think it's also important that young law students and legal professionals see real examples of tech and IP lawyers, because, sometimes you can't be what you can't imagine. So we are here as our authentic selves. You're going to hear from many of our panelists. And none of this is possible without our sponsors. So please join me in giving a virtual round of applause for the following sponsors. We have Perkins Coie, Reed Smith, Wilmer Hale, Greenberg, Traurig, Ice Miller, Verizon, Block, and a special shout out to Lisa Campbell, an individual donor. Extra special thanks to Dean Roger Fairfax, the Howard University School of Law, Shawana Skinner, our IPSA president, Jordan Dawson, and the IPSJA Executive Director Lateef Mtima, and the IPSA staff for assisting us with hosting the Equitable Regatta. This was probably the easiest year for me. I had the least amount of stress. For our law students, the first lesson you're going to learn about being an IP or tech attorney is that you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. You will not always have clarity or certainty on the law or what it is that you're supposed to do sometimes when you're getting your instructions from big law firm partners. That is going to be okay. You want to ask questions, commit yourself to being a lifelong learner. And the IP and tech law landscape is always evolving. And with new technologies come more issues for those working on the cutting edge to solve. Today, you're going to hear about some of these issues and how they impact the practice of law and society. Similar to how the law is evolving, our agenda for today's program is always evolving as well. Again, I want to welcome everyone who is online and those of us in person. We got food in person. Good food. And the first panel is going to introduce themselves. We're going to make sure, again, if there's any audio issues or any tech issues, let us know. The first panel is going to introduce themselves. We are waiting on the moderator. The moderator will come in, but in that time, I happen to know all three of these panelists, and they are very interesting, and I know they can talk about themselves and their career while we wait for their moderator to come up. So, who would like to start?
I ended up.
Matti, ladies first.
Oh,
all
goodness.
right. Use the mic for the audio. Yes.
I've never used a fuzzy mic before, so I'm very amused by this. I'm Matti Neustadt. As Charlie mentioned, I'm a IP and tech lawyer. Charlie and I work together at Microsoft. I have a background in science. I have a bachelor's degree in applied physics and worked for 10 years as an engineer before going to law school at night, and then focused on intellectual property and technology law, going in-house to companies like Micron, Microsoft, NetApp, DNV, and now operate my own kind of solo boutique firm called Forstai Kinetics, where we do technology, digital regulatory compliance, privacy, cybersecurity, data governance, AI regulation, as well as am the CEO of a legal tech software company where we're using AI to build software that helps in-house lawyers review contracts faster to get deals closed faster and be better business partners. Because one of the things we'll talk about is the need to understand the business and the technology, at least at a high level, in order to best advise your clients. I live on the West Coast, up in the mountains of Bend, Oregon, in a little tiny town. So thrilled to be in DC, where I'm going to eat at all the restaurants and have fun for a long weekend before going back into the mountains. Mr. Crosby?
That's really cool. I'm Lawrence Cosby. As the sweater says, I'm a grad of Howard University School of Law, class of 2008. My background was in computer engineering. I went to Hampton University, majored that here, thought that I would not do science ever again. I was done. I was going to be a lawyer. One of my first classes was with Professor Mtima. Went around the room, told him about our majors, what we're interested in, and he said, you're going to be an IP. And somehow I went into IP. First job out of law school, went to the patent office, stayed there for about 8 years, said I was done. I'm not doing patents anymore. I left. Wanted to do, any other type of law. Ended up back into patents, consulting, working as a contractor for a while. And now currently I'm at JP Morgan Chase, and I'm actually in their intellectual property and tech law group. I manage our corporate patent portfolio, and I work with our technologies. People don't know that JP Morgan Chase is a tech company. I work on the tech behind the tech. So it's AI, cloud, cybersecurity, anything you would think that a regular tech company would have, we have in-house. I work with the technologists with their innovations, help them develop them, help them innovate, make a determination on whether or not we can file a patent. And then I oversee our patent prosecution process. We're outside counsel. So we run a lot of things in-house. We have a lot of great innovations. Happy to be here. And we'll pass it to Obi, one of my classmates. Thank you, Mr. Cosby. And I echo everyone's sentiments. It's the first time I've had the fuzzy mic here, so this is actually pretty cool. So Obi Ihekweazu, proud graduate of Howard Law, class of 2008. A lot of my classmates are here today, so it's good to see just the investment that we continue to have in the institution. I am an in-house counsel, a company called Cheniere Energy in Houston, Texas. It is one of the largest energy companies in the world in terms of LNG, liquefied natural gas. And I work on a wide array of transactional activities. So to the extent that we have supply chain, we have IT agreements, we have other arrangements, I negotiate those, but also deal with a wide host of data governance issues. So privacy, cybersecurity, IP, the emergence of AI, all of those areas fall under my purview. And what I'll say to the students that are here in person and those that are joining us virtually is that just be prepared for change and embrace that change, right? I started my career in New York in 2008. Anyone who's a historian of 2008 or has studied that time frame knows that there was a lot of change that was involved in society, right? And I thought I would be an M&A attorney, and things quickly evolved the moment I started, right? So I've been able to sort of pivot and adjust on my journey. And, now being in-house, it has actually been very beneficial to sort of pick up all the little nuggets that you've picked up by embracing that change. Technology will certainly be continuing to change. It's changed a lot since we started. I started my practice in 2008. So I would challenge y'all to embrace that change, continue to lean in as much as possible where you see opportunities to take over areas that no one knows what to do with those areas, right? Oftentimes, those are the greatest opportunities to step in to provide guidance and support, is leaning in, investing that time to learn a competency that no one really knows. And many of the topics we'll talk about today are still very much evolving. So to the extent you're bold and inspired, jump in, lean in, take over those areas.
Sorry for being late, everybody. I'm Jordan Lewis. I'm also a SULC, HBCU in Louisiana, Southern University Law Center grad. I'm a patent attorney at Greenberg, Traurig in Austin, Texas. So since I'm late, I'll just jump right in.
I was just messing with you. They know on the jokester. It actually starts at 9:15. It's 9:10, so
Okay.
we got 5 minutes to go ahead.
All right.
pontificate on how great you are.
I'm not that great. Okay. These are the stars. I do think that this is a great intersection. There's not a lot of us in the patent world or IP world, and there's no reason why we shouldn't be there. I think we are exceptional in every way, shape, and form, and I think that IP's only going to grow, right? So we can kind of carve out our own lane, niche, whatever you want to call it. It's only going to grow with us. So while I was at Southern, I actually started our IP clinic when I went to the Southern University Law Center to kind of create almost like a pipeline, because we have so many engineers in Louisiana. And Southern actually had a night program, so you can come after you were done being an engineer for the day, come be a lawyer at night, and kind of jump started that program. And I thought that was really cool. So without further ado, if y'all want to get into it. Well, Obi, since you have the mic, we'll start with you. How are companies addressing emerging data governance risk in order to optimize intellectual property, AI, and cybersecurity strategies?
Great question. So part of being in-house is that you're constantly navigating a lot of conversations with people that are non-lawyers, right? So I'll start there. Like on the business side, you are trying to find the best way to mitigate risk, but also to facilitate business. And if you're an attorney in-house, you're trying to make sure that your conversation is consistent with that paradigm, that you're trying to facilitate business while also flagging risk and allowing us to sort of mitigate that risk in a way that's practical for the bottom line, right? Every company needs to be completely aware of all of its data capabilities and its framework, right? So to the extent that we are creating data, we have data, we need to know where our data is going. And that sort of involves our decisions to, engage the market in terms of technology. So obviously we have suppliers, we have vendors that we're going to outsource our data to process and provide information for us in order to run our business. So on the first instance is figuring out what is the appropriate way for us to diligence those vendors? What is the appropriate contractual position that we need to have with those vendors in order to secure our rights? And I'll get to the IP point. Part of this from an IP perspective is that we want to be in a position as the company to own our data, right? So we want to be able to know where our data is going, but to the extent there's work product or deliverables that are created by a vendor or supplier, the company wants to own that data and be able to have as much flexibility as possible to manage that data. In terms of governing the data risk, we obviously have employees, we have other individuals that provide us personal data. So there's a privacy element. And then also there are, to be honest with you, threat actors that would love to get our secret sauce, trade secrets, and they're constantly trying to infiltrate our network to get that data, right? So in order for us to mitigate that risk, to protect our employees, to protect the personal data, we need to know, again, what type of data are we collecting? Where do we operate? My company operates, for example, in Europe. Europe has very stringent privacy laws. My company is an energy company, so there are a ton of geopolitical risks that are going on, a lot of threat actors all around the world that would love to get our data. So we need to have the right security and protocols in place to mitigate that risk. I'll sort of add one more point. There's a lot of regulatory sort of activity right now in terms of what companies should be doing in terms of being transparent about data risk. Cybersecurity, for example, the SEC has a really sort of prominent law that was pushed out a few years ago in terms of companies reporting data breaches or incidents. And AI as a sort of a regulatory area is continuing to get more commentary in terms of what companies need to be doing to mitigate concerns in terms of leveraging AI tools, right? So we as in-house counsel need to be up to date in terms of where those positions are in order to advise our internal clients and to mitigate the risk.
Perfect. I believe that, the dollar isn't the strongest currency, right? It's data. So that's a perfect segue, though. Matti, how are lawyers keeping up with the changing landscape of AI regulation?
Barely. It's a fast changing landscape, and you are right though. Like it's not dollars anymore. It's data. I'm recording in progress. And they used to say a lot that data is the new oil, and it really isn't. Data is the new currency.
Yeah.
And not only is it valued like currency, but it's trading hands like currency, and it's being regulated like currency. And nothing consumes more data right now than AI.
Yeah.
The AI revolution, it's really, we're beyond the fourth industrial revolution into the fifth industrial revolution. And if you're not using AI, I mean, we don't have a lot of folks in the room, but how many people here have used ChatGPT, Gemini, for something more than a search engine? Yeah, I use it daily. I'm building a business around it. It is incredibly powerful. And not only are lawyers trying to stay up with the regulation around AI, and it's not just the laws that have AI in the label, like the EU AI Act, but there's 37 states in the United States that have laws that impact artificial intelligence, but they're called data protection laws. They still apply. Just because it doesn't have AI in the title doesn't mean it doesn't apply to the development, use, and deployment of AI. Europe's got some extra laws. Europe always has extra laws. And finding harmonization, if you're a global business, is really key to that. And I think that's what most lawyers do right now. We look for core principles and values that stretch across the globe, hitting the areas of data. And we figure out how to address each of the core principles in a way that meets our clients' needs. I work mostly in-house or in an in-house type of fractional role. So I want to make sure the clients can get their needs met. That's a big thing about advising corporate clients. You have to focus on their business needs as much as their legal needs. But just figuring out what the core values are, and then how do you meet those values? And here's the kicker for the lawyers. And then how do you get the client to keep evidence that they're meeting those values? Because a lot of times they're like, oh yeah, we're doing the right things. I'm like, great. Is it written down anywhere? You not only want to do the right thing, you want to have evidence that you do the right thing. But I think that's the main way we're keeping track of these laws is the core principles. There's the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. They have the AI principles governing the OECD. The EU AI Act is built on those principles. The GDPR is built on principles. So you can look at those principles, and if you can at least start there, you'll get a client on the right path. And then you just have to get them to grow and keep abreast of that. And that's part of the role of the lawyer and the obligation your license places on you to maintain your competency, keep up to date on the laws, give your client the advice and tell them how it's changing, attend CLEs, read. Anybody who's just what do you do for a living? I read mostly. So, get that done. But that's how we're doing it, one bite at a time.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we are a service industry. So, Lawrence, as it relates to that regulation in the financial sense, I know you're in-house in a financial institution, but as you said, it's a tech company. So what steps do they take to kind of ensure that they're on the progressive end of this wave that's coming?
I think the most progressive thing that JP Morgan has done as a company is create their own in-house LLM. So we have one for tech, one for legal. So that means our data is not going anywhere.
M is
large language model.
Yeah.
So we have our chat GPT in-house. We're storing everything. The data is not going anywhere because we did have a problem. Inventors and technologists were like, wait, this is an amazing technology. I'm going to use it. And then they're just throwing it into the abyss. And anybody on anywhere is picking up the data. Like, oh, what is JP Morgan doing today? And you're just seeing all of the prompts coming in. So now we have our own that it costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
But we're able to, keep all of our data, make sure, because we're a financial company. We have all of your information. You're a Chase customer. We have everything, all that personally identifiable information, all of the information from the firm. I mean, there's the secret sauce. We have secret sauces across the globe. So we have to make sure that we keep all those sauces in house and then drip a little bit out, in the public. So, people pay money and we can stay one of the largest companies and most profitable companies in the world. That's huge. As an attorney, my job is to really educate people on risk, to let people know, if you have a great idea, don't talk to anybody, talk to me first. And then, there's so many people who want to do white papers, who want to speak at conferences, who want to talk to vendors, and they have great ideas and they're focused on tech, not necessarily business. And so I have to slow them down, tell them, wait a minute, come and talk to me first. Let's see if we can file a patent. Because, one of the coolest things is that if we go talk to a vendor about an improvement, if we go ahead and patent the improvement, we can go and say, hey, we'll give you a license if you give us a deal. So come on, Salesforce, give us 20% off, and we'll let you use this, make as much money as you want. But Amazon, we have some cloud strategy for you. You can go ahead and give us a couple of buckets somewhere, and we'll give you money. So that's part of it. Education is huge, but I will say, if there's risk, there's jobs for lawyers. So we can mitigate that. So the more risk, the more money you can make, the more roles there are. So, get excited about that.
May I ask
It's hard to replace us.
May I ask a follow-up question, Mr. Cosby?
Absolutely.
You said you have your own in-house LLM, and I work with a lot of companies to make sure they have an AI policy in place. And I always tell them, make sure you tell people what they can use, because if you only tell them what they can't use, they just hide their use. Do you find that helped you, having an in-house LLM help
Recording in progress.
gain the adoption of AI because you've given them a safe space to do it?
Absolutely. I think a couple of pushes of it, some advertising in-house, some classes for people. People are actually getting, congratulations, you're using enough AI. But this allows them to be free. Even little sample things like, hey, you're making a PowerPoint. Go ahead, use an AI for this. You're actually planning a meeting. This can make your agenda. But then it also, goes to show the more you practice, the more uses you have. And now we have whole teams. We actually have a AI center of excellence, multiple machine learning centers of excellence, where there are people who are experts who are able to train others and show others the power of AI. So yeah, I think people use it more because it's, on your desktop.
And the lawyers help make that AI policy?
Oh, absolutely. Master service agreements. This whole team, AI team. And I think Ihekweazu is another hustle grad. And she is works at JP Morgan, and she's definitely tapped in to that AI policy.
Perfect. I'm going to open this up to all three of you guys. If an AI system causes a data breach or cybersecurity failure, who do you feel is legally responsible? The developer, the user, or both?
It depends.
Yeah, just gonna say that.
Let me answer on behalf of the panel, not to assume anything of my learned colleagues here. There's all sorts of ways to cause a data breach with an AI.
Correct.
So you really have to look at what was that root cause? Was it a prompt engineering attack that the user, were they trying to force it open? Did they ask a normal question and a whole bunch of crap poured out that they shouldn't have seen? Then you got a developer problem. So yeah, you've got all sorts of things that it could be. And I've, Charlie knows I've seen stuff. But there's all sorts of ways to create cybersecurity risk and mitigate cybersecurity risk with AI. But who's responsible? The only thing I can say for certain is it will be a human. You don't get to blame the robots, at least not under current law.
And I'll chime in as well. I fully agree that it depends. And this is one of the key reasons that, from an in-house perspective, we try to do a lot to mitigate that liability contractually. Now, listen, some of this relates to the type of data that's impacted by the issue, right? So if it's personal data, for example, the processor of that personal data, the controller, will ultimately be responsible. Now, what we try to do from an in-house perspective is that we do a lot to diligence the vendors or the people that are processing that data on our behalf upfront. We do a lot to contractually negotiate a lot of language where they would notify us as soon as possible, so we can do what we can to mitigate that concern, because there could be reporting requirements. There could be all sorts of things that we need to get ahead of that would hopefully offset some of that liability if we are coordinating with our partners in that regard, right? So a lot of this depends on what you sort of negotiate up front, because I fully agree that you're not going to be able to point to the tool and say, hey, the tool is going to eat that liability. It's going to be a scenario where a person or, corporate entity will be responsible. And then the question is like, what have you negotiated preemptively to address those questions before you get down that road from a litigation or arbitration perspective?
I just want to add, it depends. I have to do it. It's a people problem. It's not an AI problem yet. We have to, as a firm, educate all of our employees what not to put into prompts. Even as, attorneys, before we had our own LLM, what not to put into prompts. I mean, you'll have people throwing in, case strategies, throwing in, tech specs of things that are coming out, and just wanting, something to come out of it. And you don't know even as a person who's not affiliated, you do want to know where your information is going. You have to read. You have to read, if there's a chat GPT, go ahead and look at, what is this information being used at? Your data. I think data is intellectual property. I think that is the one that we don't talk about. And it's actually the one that can be the most profitable, and everybody has it. You might not have a patent, a trademark, a copyright, a trade secret, but you have data, and you have to own it the same way you would own, a phone or Obi's great suit. You have to just own your data. It's clean. It's clean.
I think it's a lesson too for any law students in the virtual or real audience here. You can always make yourself look super smart if you just answer every question. It depends, because that is the right answer. You're going to have to scramble and figure out what it depends on. But it depends will always get you at least a couple extra hours to go find the real answer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You kind of touched on the next question as a segue. What challenges do AI generated documents within the company, within the workforce, within the IP realm, right? Patents, agreements. What type of challenges do they face under current laws, and should that legal framework evolve, in your opinion?
Maybe you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question. I think the elephant in the room is IP protections, right? So, there's been a lot of commentary in terms of patents and copyrights sort of being out of scope and trademarks potentially being in scope for using the tools. I think that a lot of this goes back to, where do we stand as a sort of a society? Where do we stand in terms of ethical positions about generative AI and its capabilities, and wanting to allow for some protection for that technology as it enhances, while at the same time preserving our core view that humans should still be front and center in terms of IP ownership rights, right? Or corporations or whatever it may be. In terms of whether it should evolve, I think a lot of this is based on the view that while there's great rewards in these tools, there's great risk in terms of infringement, right? Because if you're loading a ton of data into these models, naturally there's a possibility in terms of infringement risk, and then that model grifting off of some other entities or person's ownership rights, which creates the view that, is it truly a new creation that should be protected, right? So in my view, to the extent that there's certain limitations in terms of the data that's put into the model, there's certain assurances that it has not infringed upon some other IP, sort of position, then there could be a zone where we continue to enhance the capabilities in terms of IP protections and ownership. But until you get that assurance, I think we're going to live where we are now, that humans still need to be front and center in terms of those creations. Trademark is a little bit of a different piece, because there's an opportunity there to create that, using these tools, but the concerns about patents, the concerns about copyrights remain, front and center because of our inability to sort of get the assurances that a human created these, or that there's no infringement involved.
Definitely. I want to. AI seems like magic. It's not really magic.
No.
And I want people to know it's a tool. It's not going to replace you. AI is dumb. It is absolutely. It might seem smart, but it has a lot of time to process things. If you had enough people and enough time, you could do it too. And I want to know you're smart. You're the one that's creative. You're the one you're the human in the loop, and the human in the loop is the innovator. The AI is the imitator. I don't believe that AI will ever be able to patent anything. AI should never be able to patent anything. That's not what the laws were made for. And can it really truly innovate? No, it can find spaces and places where, okay, I haven't found information here where a person can use that tool to then create. So the push to create AI as an inventor, does that mean AI is a person? So we're going to have to argue that. And I think that there's it's going to be a time. And I don't like the idea of trying to replace people. This country, along with others, has a history of wanting free labor, wanting not to pay for labor. And AI is another example of being able to say, get rid of the workforce. But the same way we have Word, and Word has spell check, that didn't get rid of editors. AI is not going to get rid of lawyers. We're still going to need it, but we do need to learn how to use those tools. We need to learn how to use them in our everyday life and in our work life. But there was a problem with AI. AI hallucinates. AI will, if it can't find the information, doesn't have the best guardrails, it will just give you an answer. It will just, you know what, hey, and don't be a lawyer who is relying on case law, and that case does not exist. It has the blue book format. It looks like a case. If you read that holding, it would not be the same. And so you have to check your documents. You cannot let AI just go ahead and print you out your memo or have your case strategy, and you go in front of a judge and you talk and you read off of it because your AI did this. My AI did this. And next thing you know, your client loses. And guess who's getting disbarred? So you are in charge of reading through whatever AI is pulling. I think is great for shepherdizing cases. That'll be amazing. You can pull that. That's fine. LexisNexis and Westlaw are using AI. They've been using some sort of AI for many years. But we have to be the humans in the loop, and we have to control it because we own it. We're the inventors, and AI is the imitator. Mm-hmm.
And I'm 100% with you on all of that. And I look at ways to use AI, and people are trying to use AI to replace lawyers if they're not doing a very good job at it. I just recently got into a ridiculous social media argument with somebody about whether lawyers or AI drafts contracts faster. And I'm like, I don't think speed is the number one quality you want in a contract draft. But you do you. And I will say AI won't replace people, but people who know how to use AI will replace people who don't know how to use AI. And one of the best things that a lawyer can learn to do is learn how to use AI responsibly. So you learn how to shepherdize the cases, get your citations right, meet the court requirements for documentation and citation and filing, but still double check your work. And it's one reason why a lot of people are saying, well, why isn't AI making my outside counsel fees lower? Well, because lawyers still have to double check the work of the AI. There has to be a qualified oversight, not any human in the loop, but a qualified human in the loop to do that review. And because of that, I think, again, it's not going to replace lawyers. It's just a tool. And was on a panel with a local city club back home, and somebody asked me, what scares you the most? Aren't you scared of AI taking your job? And I'm not scared of AI. I'm scared of people. It's just a tool. And it's just like a kitchen knife. You can use it to make a gourmet dinner. You can use it to kill somebody. Use it the right way.
Right. Well, this wasn't going to be a question, but since you brought it up, I feel like I have to ask, as I am outside counsel. And you guys are all technically in-house, we'll call it that. Do you anticipate budgets being lowered for your outside counsel with the anticipation that they will utilize AI in the sense of efficiency?
No. Because I think most in-house counsel, they don't make their decisions based on budget to begin with. They like to complain about it, but they don't actually make any changes to it.
So it depends.
Got him. Yeah.
So my view on this is that there will be a lot of challenges in terms of time and whether if there's an argument that AI is in progress. Still recording. If there's an argument that AI will create efficiencies, then naturally savvy enough in-house counsel will push back and say, well, why is my bill this when theoretically you've quoted that you're getting more efficiencies and you're just basically rubber stamping or validating what's already been created, right? So in my view, there will be some natural sort of commercial tension in that regard, but good outside counsel, I shouldn't say this because I'm negotiating against myself, will be able to prove their value in a way that says, hey, we're providing you a novel sort of recommendation. We're not giving you just a generated output from a tool that has not been thought through and fit for purpose for your risk model for your business, right? And I think most responsible companies will get that. So my view is that we'll sort of land somewhere in between there, right? We may say, well, we don't need to pay a bill rate for a junior associate because a lot of this has been generated on the front end with the AI tool. But we know there's some value for some senior input because naturally we know that the AI is not going to give us a sophisticated recommendation or guidance that is something that I can take to my COO or my CFO or my CEO and not be laughed out of the room, right? So I need to be able to get that value, particularly that's a little bit more than what AI can get. And most big companies are willing to pay for that value in order to mitigate the risk.
I think it's not necessarily a competition for in-house counsel. It's going to be a competition for outside counsel. They're going to be the ones lowering prices. They're going to see that, hey, you know, we can make it more profitable for you. We can be more attractive to you because we're cutting costs here. And a lot of times, if we're all giving, you know, the same level of quality, it's going to be the one that saves the company the most money. So I think it's going to be not a race to the bottom, but a race to, you know, a lower amount for outside counsel, and it's not that good for anybody other than in-house counsel.
Exactly.
I do think more than lowering budgets, though, what they'll do is expect more for the same amount of money.
Yeah. So also what I anticipate. And I think, you know, to your point, the flip side of that worries some outside counsel is the non-savvy in-house that just anticipate AI being able to do everything under the sun, right? And so they're like, well, you shouldn't have to bill me for a patent for X amount because I know AI can do it. And now we're having a philosophical discussion, right, instead of a financial discussion.
And I think what scares me more is the small businesses. I know some folks here work with smaller businesses that either avoid or delay engaging qualified counsel because they're trying to do it themselves with an AI, assuming that AI is somehow, because you know, if you can train a robot to pass the bar exam, that's all you need in order to actually provide qualified legal advice.
It's a dangerous hat. How should companies address AI-driven workplace decisions while avoiding discrimination and bias?
Try to avoid AI with discrimination and bias built into it, but let's face it, that's really effing hard.
I think it kind of goes back to, again, this paradigm that AI is just a tool, right? And we still need a human intervention to make decisions. And part of that is that if you create procedures and processes that sort of require your decision makers to, once they get an output, once they get something from the tool, to then exert another level of review that is going to provide assurances that the recommendation or the output is not creating opportunities for bias or discrimination, right? Another element of it is good, bad data in, bad data out, right? Good data in, hopefully good data out. So getting a hold of your data criteria as you sort of create these models and making sure that it's auditable, that you can course correct in terms of scenarios where bias could be created is going to be very critical to ensuring that you're getting reliable and consistent information from the tools, right? So a lot of that goes back to the sort of the principles we talked about already, good data governance, making sure that you're using the appropriate data for these models and it remains consistent. It's traceable. You can go back and course correct, or you can audit against that if ever there are any questions. Obviously, from an HR perspective, dealing with employees, there are going to be a lot of questions in terms of hiring decisions or decisions to remove employees. And this is why you need to, again, lay that framework beforehand. So if ever scrutinized at the company level, you have the defense that you need to say, this is how we make our decisions. This is how we've invested in our tools. We've diligenced the companies that we're using. This is how we control our data and leverage our data in a way that's responsible and transparent to, frankly, to our employees. As long as you're doing those things in a way that's consistent, then my view is that you'll generally be able to mitigate the risk for the most part.
Sometimes you need an AI for the AI to focus on bias and to make sure that AI is ethical. But also you need people. You need people who understand bias to be the ones that are building the AI, to build the guardrails. And then you need those who understand bias to be the ones that are parsing the data, who are reviewing it. So really, this is a human problem more than an AI problem. Because if you're the human and you're just accepting the AI's output as truth, then that's a problem. You need to be able to investigate, how did the AI come to this conclusion? And if you have that paper trail, if you have that line of understanding, then you can argue if there is any question about, whether there was bias in your decision making. But that goes to the point that kind of the panel has been saying, that we have to be educated. We have to understand how, the large language models, the machine learning models, the neural networks, the artificial intelligence, how they work, and how to get to the answer. Bad data in is terrible data out. That is huge. So we have to have great data analysts. If you have any friends that are wondering what careers they need to be in, if they don't want to go into law, data analytics is huge. And that's something that, people can do from all types of backgrounds. You need people who understand English, and language to fill that corpus of large language models, and to understand that. So, it really is, you have to risk mitigate at all levels. And if you can do that, then you may have, a chance to win.
And put it on my lawyer advisory hat too. What my colleagues here are saying too, it's not only a good idea, but those values are incorporated into law. That, the OECD principles on responsible AI include a required feedback loop to, if you see bias, that you can report it back. And there's a huge backlash right now against anybody who wants to eliminate bias in our society. As a lawyer, your clients might not want to hear that you need to do that. But if you tell them the law requires you to have a feedback loop, that's a lot more black and white. And it still gets back to the goal of eliminating bias, because you have real people who don't want to be biased against being able to give that feedback in. So if you can tell your clients the law requires you to have a feedback loop to correct AI that gives you bad output, so that if you have bad input, you get bad output. So fix the input. If the law requires that, then the humans who want to avoid the bad output can start feeding that in and correcting that, while still getting, so you still get better AI, but sometimes avoiding the political backlash that people inherently seem to feel right now if their motives are questioned.
We have a lot of language of AI being a tool, right? In your minds, everybody has their own ideas, right? Best case scenario going forward, how can we utilize AI in its greatest way, right, within the legal space, in your opinion?
I think the best case scenario, AI is going to be your favorite paralegal, your favorite secretary, your favorite, junior attorney, even if you're a junior attorney. So it's your junior attorney or a junior attorney. So it's going to be the one to do some of the work that helps you sit back in your chair, put on your thinking face, and start creating and start innovating and thinking of strategy, coming up with great language in a contract, coming up with, great case strategies if you're going to trial, making sure you're checking all your errors, blue booking for you. That as a lawyer, it'll take away some of the, I will say, mundane things that we have to do as lawyers, and allow you to really put on your biggest thinking cap and write your own opinions, and write the best memo you've ever written, because you're not going over the minutia as much. So I think it'll allow us to kind of sit back and be the big brains that we are, personal assistant, and all the like. So I think that best case scenario makes our job easier. Yeah.
I think if I were to put myself in the shoes of the client, is the strategic value that I would get from the attorney that's representing my position, right? And getting the lawyers to be able to provide that strategic value more efficiently, more reliably, based on a larger tranche of information or data, based on analytics that are hopefully reliable and can better inform a position, whether contractual or litigation wise or whatever it may be. That's the type of position or outcome I want as a client, right? Like I said, being in-house, my clients tend to be other internal stakeholders that are all sort of supporting the business, and we're all sort of focused on the business position. So being able to leverage AI to provide my strategic value more reliably, more efficiently, that is, to me, is the ideal outcome in this scenario. I don't want to sort of take your follow-up question. The downfall on that is having unreliable data, unreliable information, and then thereby creating unreliable strategy, right? And that to me is the concern, is that if you don't have the right appropriate guardrails or controls in place, the appropriate procedures, the appropriate risk tiering in terms of when you leverage a tool and when not to, you're going to create a lot of chaos and noise that is not helpful for the client's position.
And I see it as a tool too. And one of the things I've learned in the past 6 months about AI is it's not a singular entity. You can create individual GPTs from a single LLM and even make them work together. So you can, like you said, you can have your own legal secretary. For folks who go from private practice into in-house practice, you lose your legal secretary. People who have good legal secretaries are laughing because they know exactly what I mean. You lose your librarian, you lose your research assistant, and now you can get a lot of those back with AI capabilities. And I think we're going to see a lot of tech companies come up that are finding ways to optimize this in a way that lawyers can easily use. Lawyers are busy being good lawyers. They don't want to have to learn how to write the perfect prompt for the LLM. So there's a whole industry around like putting that together for an easy use solution for lawyers. I think you're going to see a huge smattering of people trying to sell you shit. Sorry. Stuff. Sorry, Charlie. He knows my he knows my habits. And you're going to have to pick the wheat from the chaff there, because some of it's going to be really good and some of it's going to be really bad. Some of it'll be secure, some of it'll be insecure. There's going to be diligence you need to do around it. You're going to have to learn to figure out what they mean when they say you need, 70 gigabytes of teraflop to get the parameters you need for the specificity demanded. And they'll try to dazzle you with all this jargon to make you think that you're getting something good. And you'll have to sit down and say, wait, no, I need to know what that is. And if I want to see one of the best tool uses for ChatGPT or some of these public LLMs, go ask it to explain AI to you. It's very good at that. So if you get people trying to sell you solutions and you don't know what they're doing and you don't know what the risks are, you can go ask ChatGPT to tell you, what do parameters mean for LLM specificity? And it'll explain it. And you could say, what does that mean? And explain it to me like I'm 10. And then you go, no, that's too dumbed down. Explain it to me like I'm 18. Yeah. And until you get the right level that you need to understand. But I think there's some great tools. We're going to see a lot more tools on the market. And it's going to be about data quality.
I just want to say what she just did was prompt engineering. Yeah. What she was just doing, she was tuning that LLM to get the answer that she wanted. A lot of I get a whole lot of emails. I don't know how people find my email, but they do. And a lot of times they don't realize I know a little bit about AI and LLMs and the like, and it's the emperor's new clothes. So you really have to know, and you have to sometimes educate your senior leadership, your senior attorneys about AI, because they might get caught up in the flash and the magic of this is what it can do. And you realizing this guy is just throwing a shell on top of a ChatGPT and trying to sell it to you with a couple of fine tuning prompts in there. It's definitely, stay woke.
Yeah, we've had to have some very hard conversations at the firm because it's like, guys, you don't need to pay for this. But again, I do think that the prompt engineering part that you kind of touched on is extremely viable, right? I think if you're an undergrad right now, you basically are a prompt engineer, right? Like if you're not using it, what are you doing, kind of thing.
And if anybody's interested in a great resource for that, I just finished a book called Co-Intelligence.
Okay.
It's all about working with AI, but it gives a lot of really good examples on how to prompt public AIs if you just want to learn what prompt engineering looks like.
Now, staying on AI being a tool, and I know we're getting close to time, so you got plenty. Okay, say bye. Getting close to AI being a tool, right? And in our world, risk is everything, right? So how or if, right, can AI be used as a tool to identify risk factors in increasing cyber threats like deepfakes or automated hacking, in your opinion?
Can I?
Go for it. Yeah.
I feel like I'm always ending the conversation.
Have at it.
It's the closest to the mic.
The one thing I would say is that AI is very bad at recognizing AI. And the output of AI is getting even better. It is, however, good at extrapolating patterns that humans can't extrapolate. So in terms of like cybersecurity logging and SEMS and pattern recognition and figuring out what a signal is versus noise for attacks on a network, there's a lot of tools that are really good out there that utilize AI for that. It is getting better at making deep fake videos and audio. And for that, I simply trust no one and nothing, especially if I found it on the internet. And basically assume that anybody who's emailing me, calling me, or sending me a video link is not my friend and does not want to be my friend, but simply wants to scam me out of something until they prove otherwise. So I'm a very suspicious person.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Matti just said. I think one thing that I would say, just kind of seeing this from the in-house vantage point, is the personnel burden that it takes to track and manage cyber threats on a day-to-day basis. So large companies, I don't want to disclose how often, but we're constantly being inundated with threat actors that are trying to infiltrate our networks every day. And we have a team of people that are tracking that every day, right? So AI is going to hopefully create an opportunity where you gain efficiencies in terms of spotting trends and, analysis that seems to be atypical based on what is normal. I'll sort of do a plug for insider risk as well. So a lot of cyber threat is created by insiders, and that could be employees, that could be other contractors that companies rely on. And in an ideal state, AI would be able to spot trends related to people that already have access controls to the information or to the network, and then populate that information in a way that's usable, so we get ahead of those threats in a more efficient manner. Again, from a human perspective, the labor that it takes to do that and to do it accurately is challenging. If I'm the CFO or I'm someone tracking in terms of headcount, there's a dollar expense that comes with that, right? So a lot of what an ideal state AI scenario would be is that you'll be able to get more data, more information about trends, analytical information about atypical activity for people that have access privileges, thereby putting the company in a better position to mitigate the cyber threats.
I'm not going to talk about any specifics of JP Morgan cybersecurity. Please don't. But right now, someone's trying to hack into JP Morgan mainframe, everything, everywhere, all the time. And we definitely have dedicated teams for that. AI is great for modeling. It's great for modeling threat landscapes. It's great for crunching the numbers, doing the data. People can go to sleep. And while they're sleeping, AI can be compiling all that data and then giving them that workspace, that threat activity level, so they can use that. AI is great at compiling risk. It's also great at remediating the risk if people tell it what to do, being specific on certain risks. So it's part of anything. It's a great co-pilot. It's not a great pilot at all. But as a co-pilot and a co-defender, AI should be part of your security system. It should be part of your risk. It should be part of your compliance. AI is great at compliance. You give it some rules and it'll check and say, hey, this has violated this rule. And now a person can come in and fix that. So AI is also great at being bad. AI is fantastic. The same way in which companies, like the ones we all work for, are using AI for quote unquote good. There are bad actors who are using AI all the time. I want us to, all be aware of deep fakes, especially on social media. Don't believe anything until you verify it. And don't give anybody money. I don't. Even if it's your grandmother, she's been arrested in Istanbul, and she needs $500 right now. Call your uncle first to make sure your grandma's okay.
Well, that's all the questions we have. If we have any questions in the audience, we'll open it up for questions in the audience, actually.
Yes, you got time. And for questions in the audience so that we can get it on a recording, that mic that comes out.
Yeah.
And you got to take the mic to all that.
Gotcha. Do we have any questions in the audience?
Can you get it on?
That's what we got. And while they get the mic out, one of the things to keep in mind, AIs are designed to keep you happy, not to keep you informed. So also something to keep in mind when you get answers out.
Okay. also to add to that, what she's saying, that AI will lie to you. It will lie to your face because it doesn't want to say a lot of times, I don't know. It will be like, hey, like, I think this is it. And so it's up to you to go and do the research and to triple check.
One question I had, in your in-house large language model, if your attorneys pardon me, are using that to draft a patent spec, how do you keep it from writing the prior art into the specification, which could render it rather vulnerable?
Okay. In our in-house LLM usage, how to repeat the question? Because I was trying to. I thought, the question was in our in-house using the LLM and the like. How do we stop the AI from putting prior art into our specification when we're drafting it? We outsource our patent drafting. I overview it. Shout out to Greenberg, Traurig. They're a great firm. But we do kind of warn them on using AI when it comes to drafting specs. Boilerplate information, go right. Use your AI for boilerplate. But when it comes to the actual specifications that will be used to draft the claims, don't do it. We don't do. We give enough information as technologists, as inventors, that you don't need to type that in as a prompt. And that's a part where you have a job. You're human. Do the human work. You can use your AI for do some prior art searches. You can do some AI to help you with language. But other than that, help you maybe with 101 issues. That is something that can be used for AI. But when it comes to the real innovative drafting, I mean, if you want to use AI for the drawings, go ahead. But when it comes to the actual patent, the more you use AI, because it's using things it's already learned from to give you an answer, the more prior art you're putting in there, which is going to have a field day as an examiner. I'm just going to use a word search, and I'm going to go ahead and give you a 102B, and I'm going home happy.
Yeah, and it's not a field day for the examiner, a field day for the competitor.
Oh wow, yeah, that's also and that once again, that's a risk, and we don't want to have risk, because mitigating risk is our job. And if we and risk leads to potential damages, and damages means lost money for us in the end.
And can you please dumb it down for us like a ChatGPT prompt? What's a 102B?
Okay. I'm sorry. That is if I let's say I'm inventing this mic. It's a fantastic mic, and I think it's the greatest mic that's ever been made. It has a fuzzy top. Nobody's ever done a fuzzy top before. And then a patent examiner goes and looks, and they type in, they might even go to Google Patents, and guess what they find? From like 5 years ago, there's this little known company that's never gone to market, but they did patent that fuzzy mic. And so a patent examiner goes and finds that, and it's a 1-to-1. It has the fuzzy top, it has the long side, and it has the blue light. And the patent examiner sends it to them and says, I know this is your dream mic. I know this is what you wanted to do, but that money you just gave to the government, gave to the patent office, you're not getting it back. And you're not getting a patent. I'm sorry. But thank you for your time.
But that is also where we come in. Is actual fact price. So they price under just big. That's a glaze. You ain't getting a lot.
Okay.
It's a different color fuzz.
It's a
and one thing Mr. Cosby said that he said he went to his outside counsel firms and said, don't use AI here. And for newer or younger lawyers just starting their practice, the ABA Model Rules of Professional Conduct also have a written rule on the use of AI. You are required to tell your clients if you are using AI. And a failure to do that is an ethical violation that could get you in trouble later. So even if your client doesn't tell you not to use AI, you tell them and see if it's okay before you do that.
Yeah, real quick, I'll add to that. That's going to continue to sort of be more commentary on that, I suspect, in the coming years. Definitely for the students or junior attorneys, I would definitely track that as much as possible in terms of your provision of legal services. A lot of this goes back to the question that Jordan raised, even about fees and transparency about how your time is being spent, Are you accurately billing your clients based on actual services provided vis-a-vis the tool? So it's something to really think about. Confidentiality as well. A lot of the AI sort of paradigm will absolutely be relevant in terms of confidentiality, even issues of privilege. So making sure that you have a very clear hierarchy in terms of what types of data you put into these tools in order to mitigate the risk of confidentiality concerns, even privilege concerns as well. I think that'll be extremely important in the coming years.
Good morning, and my question is for OU. And I want to know, in the energy sector, how does AI integrate into cybersecurity measures and what?
Yeah, so great question. So the question was, in the energy sector, how is AI being integrated in order to support business initiatives and activities, right? So definitely from an energy perspective, cybersecurity is one of the key areas that we're starting to see an uptick in terms of use of AI capabilities. It goes without saying, energy is a geopolitical issue, right? And there's a lot of sort of concerns in terms of security, protection of information and data, because strategically, we're talking about national sort of like positions. There's a lot of risk in terms of threat actors that are looking to infiltrate energy companies and get data or frankly create issues in terms of national security. So a lot of companies are starting to, definitely do what they can to validate the AI capabilities in order to further mitigate the cyber issues that are out there. Like every other company agnostic to industry, their internal potential, efficiencies that we're considering as well, right? So energy companies, just like every other company, have an HR department, have a legal department, have accountants and other types of professionals that would love to gain the efficiencies in terms of their day-to-day activities as well. So companies are trying to create risk models or data governance models that create consistency in terms of their decision-making about investment in technology. So sometimes, what happens at companies is it's almost like a shiny new object syndrome, where you start to see people say, yeah, AI is here, we want to spend a lot of money. And if you have inconsistencies in terms of the way you validate your data investments, then it's going to create problems in terms of how you secure your data, right? So responsible companies are starting to find ways to create a hierarchy of needs and make sure that they have the right clarity in terms of what's a ROI investment for secure their positions in terms of security, but also getting the efficiencies they're looking for. Besides that, just staying abreast of all of the topics in terms of the regulatory positions. So I mentioned earlier that there are a lot of the federal agencies have weighed in, international jurisdictions as well, in terms of the use of AI, and that correlates to other topics as well, cybersecurity and privacy as well. So it's very important for us to stay on top of that in terms of our activities. Energy companies tend to be highly regulated. So all of these different agencies, all of these different jurisdictions oftentimes have very clear mandates in terms of how you use data, how you secure your company, and we have to translate our strategy to those regulatory directives.